I have some interesting news that is new as of the recording of this video, which is that Google is now showing social media icons in the knowledge panel for local businesses. So when you search for a local business and Google knows you're looking exactly for that business and they show a knowledge panel on the right of the organic search results, they are now showing social media icons in there, which is a great way to get some extra traffic to your company or your businesses or your clients' social presence, social media presence. And when we saw that this was just happening, Chad sent me a message and said, hey, check this out. This is a new thing. And by the way, your Twitter is showing up for your in your knowledge panel. So I have a knowledge panel for my web design business. This is a local knowledge panel. So when you search specifically for my business and you're in this area, Google thinks you're probably looking for this specific local business, and it shows a local panel here. So this is it's different from a knowledge panel that you would get at other times when searching for things. My web design business is not that prominent, but it does get a local knowledge panel, and in this local knowledge panel, my Twitter is now showing up. Now, this is not the point of this video, but I can't let this pass since I'm showing you my knowledge panel without pointing out that what I have here is a classic Google review algorithm screw up. I noticed this at the same time that Chad was pointing out that my Twitter profile is showing up on here, and if I look, you can read the review that it says there, and if I go to all the reviews, you can see that the full review is after getting burned from another web designer who overpromised and never delivered and never refunded. A friend referred me to Seth Kimball. So I know this guy, and I'm going to try to get him to reword that. So that may be a video for another time, but I just kind of couldn't let this sort of horrific review that's sitting on my knowledge panel go by in this video without mentioning that that's not describing me. I don't do a whole lot of local marketing through my local listing, my Google My Business page, so thankfully that's not hurting me too much at the moment, but I do need to get that changed. But in any case, what I want to talk about is how I got this Twitter profile to show up here. Now, the short answer is we don't know, and nobody really knows how Google is deciding to show these social media icons for your social media profiles in a knowledge panel. But I can tell you that I don't do a ton of SEO for my website or for my local business. And so the few things that I do have in place may be a pretty good recipe for how you can at least get started in having Google put some of your social media profiles as icons on your knowledge panel. So with that in mind, let's go to my website. The first thing to mention is that I have a link to Twitter on my website. I also have a link to my Instagram, but I have a link to Twitter on my website, and I have a link to my website from my Twitter. Okay, so those two are linking to each other. And more importantly, or at least also importantly, on my website link to Twitter, I have a specific tag in there that's rel equals me. You can see I have it highlighted there. So this is the code of my link to my Twitter profile on my website, and in that code I have rel equals me. And if I go to like a Wikia page about that, rel is me. It's used on hyperlinks from one page about a person to another page about the same person. It's a piece of micro formatting that I can put in there that tells any search engine or anything else crawling my site, hey, here's the link to my Twitter, and by the way, this Twitter page is also me. The website you're on and the person who runs that Twitter page, same person. And interestingly enough, Twitter uses rel equals me in their link automatically. If I view the source on this, their link, it's a little funny looking because it's through a Twitter redirect, but it is still matters that it also is a rel equals me link. So I'm linking to Twitter with rel equals me, and Twitter is linking back to me with rel equals me. Now, if I go to Google's official documentation about social profile links, which has been up for a long time, long before these social media icons were showing up in specifically local knowledge panels, which is the change. They were already showing up in regular knowledge panels that show up, and Google's instructions about that are not to use rel equals me, but to use same as. And same as is another type of markup that says a very similar thing, saying, hey, these two people are the same thing. And so that's Google's official guidelines. But obviously, they are reading multiple different types of signals here, because I'm not using same as, I'm using rel equals me. Now, I do have some other markup in the source of my site where I do use same as down here, but that is pointing to some other various things, to a Freebase article I made about myself and stuff like that. I actually have another video on that, but I am not using same as it relates to my Twitter. I'm using rel equals me. So from my website and social media presence perspective, rel equals me is what's working. Now, that's not the only thing that I have going, and I'm going to show you a couple of the things that I have in place that that I think are also affecting this. So I did a test a while back on trying to set up a number of various sort of social media, high authority social media profiles, and linking them back to my site, and linking them to some of my sort of most active social media profiles. And I'm going to just run through these real quick, and I've got links to these below. Now, I tested, I think, I set up profiles on, I think, maybe 17 different sites. I had an outsourcer do this, actually. But many of them wound up not allowing me to link in the way I wanted, so I'm only showing you the ones that link to my Twitter, because these are what would say, here's Seth Kimball, and Seth Kimball also has this Twitter account. So to run through these, I've got flavors.me. You can see here, just make this visible. I link to my Twitter, I link to my web page, I link to my Twitter, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Instagram. I link to all those from there. I have a Moz.com account, which links to my Twitter and my LinkedIn and my website over here. I set up a Wattpad account, which has links to a bunch of these, to Twitter, to Instagram, to LinkedIn, to Facebook. And you'll notice that a lot of these link to multiples, and I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. Pearl Trees, I'm not sure whether this one made that much of a difference, because what I actually have here is a mention. These aren't actually links. You can't click on them, and it's in this pop-up box, so I'm not positive that Pearl Trees made a big difference, but I did have this set up, and it does at least have those URLs there. Vimeo, which has links to Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and to my website. SoundCloud, which has my website, my Twitter, my Instagram, links there. And then, of course, Google+. Now, this isn't my Google My Business page. This is separate. This is my personal Google+ profile. But on this profile, I link both to my own website. Of course, I was linked to my YouTube, but then I also link to my Twitter here. And interestingly enough, Google actually, when in my other profiles section here, all I did was add this link, and Google automatically adds rel equals me to that link. So that's an interesting thing. Even though their official guides are saying to use same as, Google Plus is actually using rel equals me in this situation. So that's an interesting thing to point out. So I also have my Google Plus linking to my website and my Twitter. So like I said, I'll link to those below below this video, to those particular profiles that actually worked and had links to my social media, to my various social media sites. Like I said, I set up a bunch. I think I set up 10 or so more, or had an outsourcer set up 10 or so more, but whether it was the outsourcer not quite figuring out how to get the links in there, or maybe the platform just didn't allow for links showing up, basically those never got a link to my Twitter. So I have a few key social media sites with links to my Twitter. My website is linking to my Twitter with rel equals me. My Twitter is linking back to my website with rel equals me. And that's all I have as far as off-page signals, okay, as far as links going around. But the other thing that is just interesting to point out, as you can see on a lot of these, is that I didn't just link to my Twitter in all of these. I linked to my Instagram, LinkedIn. Generally, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook were the other three that I was trying to hit every time that I set up some of these profiles. But for some reason, only my Twitter is showing up here. And I would argue that Google has some other signals going on here as well, because my Twitter account is the only one in which I'm really active. If you've seen my how to win at Twitter videos, you know that I went through a whole process, testing a whole process to jump from about 100 followers to around 800 followers in a couple months. And that also involved me getting a lot more active on Twitter. I started tweeting a lot more, scheduling tweets out so that I have tweets going out just about every day. I've kind of scaled that back to every other day, and I don't seem to be losing followers. But anyway, I'm really active on Twitter, and I've gotten some pretty good retweets. So I've gotten some of my tweets are getting a lot of impressions when they get retweeted by somebody that I mention or something like that. So I think that my activity on Twitter is a factor. And so I don't think that just setting up the links on your website and then setting up these social media profiles is going to be enough to get your social media icons showing up here. I think the fact that only my Twitter showed up when I have a lot of other sites linked on these social media sites. Now, it could be that my Twitter is the one that's linked from my website, but my Instagram is also linked from my website. And actually, if you look at my Instagram, it has a link back to my website from my Instagram page. So so those are linked back and forth as well. I actually didn't check to see if I had a rel me on there. Yeah, so my Instagram is also linking back with rel equals me. And while I did not include my Instagram in a lot of these pages, I did include it on some. And I almost always include LinkedIn and Facebook. And yet still only my Twitter is showing up. And my Twitter is the only one that really has kind of some sort of larger scale activity happening on it. So I think that you get these things in place, and I recommend getting these links in place, links from your website to your social media, links back from your social media to your website, and then also get a bunch of these other social media sites set up linking to these various places so Google can start to put those together as all being one thing. My recommendation is that you do that right away, because it's going to take Google some time to crawl through that. It's going to take time for that info to kind of sort of percolate inside Google's black box. And then at the same time, the ones that you want to show up here, or I think even better, the social profiles where you think you really can connect with potential customers, or whoever it is that you're trying, whether you're using it for networking or whatever. Get really active on those specific social media sites where you think, this is really an effective place for me to network or to connect with my followers, and then start being active. I do have a video, my How to Win at Twitter video. I have also a link to just a general video about using Hootsuite, and Hootsuite can help you to automate some of that social media activity so that it doesn't take you forever to do that. So that's another thing I would recommend. So I think there's some other thing happening inside Google's black box that's making this show up. So I think your level of activity and your number of followers and things like that on specific social media profiles does make a difference. But definitely get the links to your website, links on your website to social media, links back to your website from your social media, and then links on a bunch of other various profiles. And that's going to kind of lay a groundwork for you to have this showing up.